Welcome to World History. My name is Stephanie Edmonds, creator of Teaching Liberty, a school by the people, for the people. And it is my pleasure to bring to you our first video series ever, Modern World History. In this series, we will explore historical events from around the world, beginning around 1450 and going through the present. Around 1450, life on Earth began to rapidly and radically change. For most of history prior to this, people's lives had been simple and slow, and most people lived in rural areas or in the countryside and worked as farmers. In fact, around 1450, only 5% of the world's population lived in or around a city. However, by 1750, that more than tripled to over 16% of the world's population. And now, today, over 55% of the world's population lives in an urban or city area, though that is heavily skewed towards Western and more developed countries. It is also around 1450 when the center of power began to shift from the east, where powers such as China, Persia, and India had dominated for nearly 1,000 years, back to the west, which had been in decline since the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476. Education is priceless, so like all my videos, this series is free. However, liberty is not. So consider making a donation to Teaching Liberty via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo using the links in the description down below. Additionally, you can become a member of the Teaching Liberty community over at TeachingLiberty.org for as little as $1 a month. And for just $3 a month, you can get access to free and member-priced learning materials that go along with each video, including this video right here. The easiest way to support, however, is to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Since this is the first video in the series, let's take some time to establish what you should expect to gain, some habits for success, and then we'll finish by thinking of ourselves as participants in history and what that means for our understanding of history. First, by watching the series and engaging in related learning activities, you can expect to gain a comprehensive understanding of world history from 1450 through the present. This includes, but is not limited to, a big picture understanding of historical events, the ability to identify and explain global trends as well as local phenomenon, and analyzing the decisions of important leaders as well as the everyday actions of common people. To maximize your learning experience, I highly recommend taking notes while watching. As you have noticed, key vocabulary terms are highlighted and defined throughout. I will also use titles and bullet points to emphasize main ideas. These are all examples of things that you should consider taking notes on. Additionally, you can get guided notes and other learning materials that go along with this video by becoming a member at TeachingLiberty.org. Additionally, in the description of each video, you will find a link to the show notes that contains all the sources referenced. And if you ever have any questions or suggestions, please do not hesitate to email me at teachingliberty@protonmail.com. Now, let's talk about history. Or at least the philosophy of history. That is, let's talk about how we talk about history and how we know what we know. Or do we? Because think about it. How, as a person alive, right here, right now, am I ever supposed to understand how somebody lived hundreds of years ago, let alone thousands? Let's think about this a little bit more with a quote from E.G. Carr in his book, What is History? In the first place, the facts of history never come to us pure, since they do not and cannot exist in a pure form. They are always refracted through the mind of the recorder. It then follows that when we take up a work of history, our first concern should be not with the facts which it contains, but with the historian who wrote it. So go ahead and pause the video right here. Take a couple of minutes to process that and write down what you think that means in your own words. So what do you think? When you take a few minutes, read it over and really think about it, it's like, boom. And from my understanding, what this means is that like light refracting through a glass of water. A pile of facts, once processed through your mind, changes directions. Because we think a fact is a fact, but the way in which you put those facts together in the story that you tell is dependent on the person who is telling them. This has many implications, but two in particular that I want to draw your attention to. Number one, it is always my goal to present information to you in an objective manner, that is, without bias. Bias being when you show preference to certain people or ideas over others, usually resulting in the unfair treatment of a certain group of people. I'm not about that. It is always my goal to remain objective and unbiased. However, I, like you, am a biased actor. I'm a 31-year-old female of Jewish European descent, born, raised, and living in the northeastern part of the United States, just outside of New York City, and I love history. And I truly believe in the power of education to create more opportunities for more people. That's my bias. And that's why I always encourage you to question me and everything that you hear in these videos. And that's why I encourage you to send your questions, your fact checks, and your comments to me at teachingliberty@protonmail.com. And number two, you, like me, are biased. You have your own experiences and traditions and worldview, and you too are refracting this information through your mind. And that's okay, as long as you keep it in your awareness and you question it. As Carr goes on to explain later in the same essay, the relationship between the historian and his facts is one of give and take. He says, the historian is in a continuous process of molding his facts to his interpretation and his interpretation to his facts. Thus, the key to unlocking the secrets of the past begins by trying to understand ourselves. Therefore, as much as this series is about the past, it is about learning about ourselves. History is a part of the branch of education known as the humanities. Humanities can be defined as those branches of knowledge that concern themselves with human beings and their culture. It is a method of inquiry derived from an appreciation of human values and the unique ability of the human spirit to express itself. So before we begin our journey into history, let's consider the human experience in general and our own identities in particular. What does it mean to be human? And what makes you, you? I want you to go for a walk and really think about these things. It could be around your neighborhood, at a local park, or at some trails. Just get outside and go for a walk and think about these two questions. What does it mean to be human? And what makes you, you? And on your walk, I want you to bring with you a notebook and a pen. And I want you to find a place to sit and write down all those thoughts you've been thinking in your head. And I want you to write for a good 5-10 minutes and just write anything that comes to your head, right? What does it mean to be human? What is this human experience all about? And the same for what makes you, you. These could be things that you love to do. These could be things about your appearance. They could be about your personality. What makes you, you? And they don't all have to be completely unique things, but all of those things coming together make you uniquely you. So go for that walk, really think about these questions, write down your answers, and if you feel like sharing, go ahead and leave a comment down below. What do you think makes us human? And what really makes you, you? In this series on modern world history, we will go on adventures through time studying different cultures and events, but at the same time, we will be learning about ourselves. For how we understand ourselves in the world shapes how we understand history, and how we understand history shapes how we understand ourselves and the world. And we'll see you right back here next time for episode number 2 of our Modern World History series.